Hello, and welcome to Nobody Inu's series of Warcraft history, where we discuss the lore of the Warcraft universe and the edited lore that was changed for the World of Warcraft game by Blizzard. Last episode, we explored the various accounts surrounding the creation of the Second Well of Eternity and Illidan's arrest. We found the different accounts give different estimates to the amount of vials Illidan poured into the lake at Hyjal, as well as notable differences detailing his arrest, the accusations brought against him, as well as the banishment of arcane practice, the outline of the demon hunters, as well as their practices of demon hunting, the creation of the wardens, to hunt down any and all threats to Night Elf society, such as the demon hunters and those who used arcane magic, the sexist class structures, and the gender-based roles, among many other notable things. We ultimately concluded that it happened to be one of the most important events in all of Warcraft's history and in the Warcraft universe. Today we continue on with events that could be considered to be consequences to the creation of the Second Well or the New Well of Eternity. Again, just like the War of the Ancients and the Sundering, as well as the creation of the Second Well of Eternity, there are various versions covering the blessings of the World Tree and the Emerald Dream. They are the Warcraft 3 account, the RPG account, the World of Warcraft account, and the War of the Ancients trilogy account. Depending on the version, the aspects may have either tested the Night Elves to gauge their worth before taking action, immediately planted Nordrassil to counter the effects of the well and to hide it, were completely unaware of the well's existence for some years until it was brought to their attention, or thanked the Caldori for their sacrifice, seeing them as noble, and blessed them after Illidan's imprisonment. So let's begin. For many years, the Night Elves worked tirelessly to rebuild what they could of their ancient homeland. Leaving their broken temples and roads to be overgrown, they constructed their new homes amidst the verdant trees and shadowed hills at Hyjal's base. In time, the dragons that had survived the Great Sundering came forth from their secret abodes. Alexstrasza the Red, Ysera the Green, and Nasdormu the Bronze descended upon the Druids' tranquil glades and surveyed the fruits of the Night Elves' labors. Malfurion, who had become an archdruid of immense power, greeted the mighty dragons and told them about the creation of the New Well of Eternity. The great dragons were alarmed to hear the dark news and speculated that as long as the well remained, the Legion might one day return and assault the world once again. Malfurion and the three dragons made a pact to keep the well safe and ensure that the agents of the Burning Legion would never find their way back into the world. Alexstrasza, the Life-Binder, placed a single enchanted acorn within the heart of the Well of Eternity. The acorn, activated by the potent magical waters, sprung to life as a colossal tree. The mighty tree's roots grew from the well's waters, and its verdant canopy seemed to scrape the roof of the sky. The immense tree would be an everlasting symbol of the Night Elf's bond with nature, and its life-giving energies would extend out to heal the rest of the world over time. The Night Elves gave their world tree the new name Nordrassil, which meant crown of the heavens in their native tongue. Nasdormu, the Timeless, placed an enchantment upon the world tree to ensure that as long as the colossal tree stood, the Night Elves would never age or fall prey to sickness or disease. Ysera, the Dreamer, also placed an enchantment upon the world tree by linking it to her own realm, the ethereal dimension known as the Emerald Dream. The Emerald Dream, a vast, ever-changing spirit world, existed outside the boundaries of the physical world. From the dream, Ysera regulated the ebb and flow of nature and the evolutionary path of the world itself. The Night Elf Druids, including Malfurion himself, were bound to the dream through the world tree. As part of the mystical pact, the Druids agreed to sleep for centuries at a time so that their spirits could roam the infinite paths of Ysera's dreamways. Though the Druids were grieved at the prospect of losing so many years of their lives to hibernation, they selflessly agreed to uphold their bargain with Ysera. That passage can be found in the History of Warcraft, Chapter 1, under the World Tree and the Emerald Dream, and it occurred approximately 9,000 years prior to the opening of the Dark Portal. This next passage can be found in the Warcraft RPG, page 22, under the Sundering of the World. The three great dragons, Alexstrasza, Ysera, and Nosdormu, helped them create Nordrassil, the World Tree. Sustained by the well's magic, but divine rather than arcane in origin, Nordrassil obscured the existence of the Well of Eternity and protected the world against any future threats from the Burning Legion. The final passage can be found within the Warcraft 3 manual, under Night Elves, the Sentinels, Night Elf History, the World Tree, and the Emerald Dream. For many years, the Night Elves worked tirelessly to rebuild what they could of their ancient homeland. Leaving their broken temples and roads to be overgrown, they constructed their new homes amidst the verdant trees and shadowed hills at Hyjul's base. In time, the dragons that had survived the Great Sundering came forth from their secret abodes. Alexstrasza the Red, Ysera the Green, and Nosdormu the Bronze descended upon the Druids' tranquil glades and surveyed the fruits of the Night Elves' labors. Firion, who had become an archdruid of immense power, greeted the mighty dragons and told them about the creation of the new Well of Eternity. The great dragons were alarmed to hear the dark news and speculated that as long as the well remained, the Legion might one day return and assault the world once again. Firion and the three dragons made a pact to keep the well safe and ensure that the agents of the Burning Legion would never find their way back into the world. Alexstrasza, the Life-Giver, placed a single enchanted acorn within the heart of the Well of Eternity. The acorn, activated by the potent magical waters, sprung to life as a colossal tree. The mighty tree's roots grew from the well's waters, and its verdant canopy seemed to scrape the roof of the sky. The immense tree would be an everlasting symbol of the Night Elves' bond with nature, and its life-giving energies would extend out to heal the rest of the world over time. The Night Elves named their world tree Nordrassil, which meant crown of the heavens in their native tongue. Nosdormu, the Timeless, placed an enchantment upon the world tree that ensured that as long as the colossal tree stood, the Night Elves would never age or fall prey to sickness or disease. Ysera, the Dreamer, also placed an enchantment upon the world tree by linking it to her own realm, the ethereal dimension known as the Emerald Dream. The Emerald Dream, a vast, ever-changing spirit world, existed outside the boundaries of the physical world. From the dream, Ysera regulated the ebb and flow of nature and the evolutionary path of the world itself. The Night Elf Druids, including Firion himself, were bound to the dream through the world tree. As part of the mystical pact, the Druids agreed to sleep for centuries at a time so that their spirits could roam the infinite path of Ysera's dreamways. Though the Druids were wary of losing so many years of their lives to hibernation, they selflessly agreed to uphold their bargain with Ysera. It's interesting to note that many believe the Aspects immediately planted Nordrassil right after Illidan had been arrested to hide the Well of Eternity, and proceeded to bless the Night Elves with their various gifts and powers, when originally the Night Elves had to somewhat prove themselves to be worthy of the blessings. Having to show they truly had forsaken the use of arcane magic and had taken the divine teachings of Cenarius seriously, as well as the slow, tedious process of learning the natural arts of Judaism. Regrowing the forests and healing the lands of their reckless use of magic, and having to pay for the unfortunate mistakes that the Highborn had committed. It was also more than simply having to prove themselves worthy or to show they had put forth effort. The Night Elves would be held responsible and held accountable for their actions by many of the ancient creatures, divine beings, and other powerful entities, not just the dragons. The Night Elves would somewhat have to go above and beyond this notion of accountability, and were expected to comply and not complain. Because of the race's overall attitude and willingness to do this, many of the forest creatures, divine beings, and spirits came to forgive the Night Elves and befriend them. Many would become valuable allies, helping them in disputes, guiding them in times of unrest, and coming to their aid in times of war. The idea that the aspects immediately planted the World Tree after Illidan's arrest may come from the War of the Ancients trilogy. In this account, the war and the events surrounding it were altered due to the interference of the time travelers, and the process of traveling back into time changed the history of the war's conflict. Because of this, the aspects were present during Illidan's arrest and quickly came to realize what had transpired. The aspects took action far more swiftly than they had in the original timeline, known as Timeline Prime, and believed the proper solution to Illidan's treachery was to plant the World Tree in the heart of the well. The three aspects, along with Cross's support, attempted to counter what Illidan had done by granting the Night Elves the three gifts and planting the World Tree in the belly of the well, thus acting almost immediately after the well's creation. However, in the Timeline Prime, the Night Elves, through the use of their Druidic arts and the process of regrowing, restoring, and repairing their ravaged lands, began to develop a love of the wilds, the wilderness, and the thousands of creatures that inhabit it, creating a strong bond and ties with the mythical beings and creatures, and came to love the forest lands and the new forest they had grown. The Night Elves would come to respect it as the divine beings and ancients themselves did. The Night Elves would rarely build cities from this point on, and turned more to the wilds, and built their buildings around or with the flow of the forest rather than destroying the trees outright or devastating the ecosystem. Many Night Elves would learn to live in the trees and trunks as the furbolgs did, among other species. The Night Elves became much more feral, wild, and wily. The Night Elves also became far more aggressive and hostile to any being who encroached on their lands, and protected the forest and nature with extreme hostility and prejudice to any who would dare upset the order and stability of nature. Over the years, this aggressiveness would only increase as the Night Elves isolated themselves from the other civilized societies. The Night Elves became infatuated with the forest and would turn into the most bloodthirsty savages when it came to protecting it, their savagery rivaling that of the jungle trolls in combat and ferociousness. Night Elves killed any who harmed nature in any way and sought companionship only with the beings who were a part of the life cycle of nature itself. This drastic change in affinity to nature and its divine power and magic helped convince the ancients and other beings that the Night Elves had truly changed for good, and that under Cenarius' eye, they had forsaken the use of felon arcane magics, and were truly sincere about restoring their lands. The Night Elves further demonstrated their cause and loyalty by hunting down any remaining demons, and ostracizing the demon hunters and those who used demonic magic from their society and realm. Under the Druids and Night Elves' watchful eyes, much of the forest had been repaired and restored to its former glory. However, this drastic change in behavior and belief would only push the surviving Highborn further and further away. The Highborn had been nearly ostracized along with the demon hunters. But unlike the demon hunters, the Highborn did not partake in demon rituals and sacrifices, nor did they summon demons or capture them to absorb their power and soul, using it to hunt down more demons. Rather, the remaining Highborn struggled immensely from their withdrawals from arcane magic and became second-class citizens. The Highborn were punished the most and continuously blamed for letting the demons into the world and destroying the forest. Eventually, this among many other notable treatments would force the Highborn to leave the Night Elf lands for good in their exodus. The World of Warcraft account, along with the Warcraft 3 account, assert the notion that the Night Elves had to work hard and waited years for the fruit of their labors to come forth. And years later, the dragons blessed them with the World Tree and the Emerald Dream. The Warcraft RPG makes no distinction on the amount of time that had passed or that took for the dragons to act, while the War of the Ancients trilogy had them act almost immediately. Ultimately, the entire Night Elf culture was recreated. Under Cenarius, Malfurion, and Tyrande, the Night Elf system was completely destroyed and reworked. Night Elves no longer truly emphasized beauty and fine arts, or wealth with gold, or power and magic. Night Elves found peace and value in all things pertaining to nature, helping nature in all its wonders. Rather than using their powers for self-gain and for destruction, Night Elves began to value life and using their magics to benefit all, in nature and in their society, as well as using it to help others or to create new things. Outside of the Warcraft universe, it would seem as if Night Elf society and culture was influenced originally by a combination of Norse, Greek, and Byzantine Empire customs. Many of their ancient cities and buildings bear resemblance to these various cultures, and the aristocratic attitudes and natures of the nobles, as well as the Highborn, also seem to emphasize this, especially with their attire, their political system, and the ranking orders. However, after the reconstruction and rebuilding of the Night Elf society, it would seem as if their new culture and society was strongly influenced by Celtic, Amazonian, and Japanese customs, beliefs, concepts, behaviors, methods, and ideologies, among many other such traits. Many of the warrior women and sexist principles seem to further demonstrate this, as well as the strong emphasis and affinity to nature, the class structure, and weapons forged for war. Some buildings also seem to emphasize this as well. However, I can speak more on this matter in the episode on the Night Elf racial trivia. In the end, the Night Elves found themselves to be a new people, with new values and beliefs, a new home with new friends and new powers. Men would become caretakers of the forest, and would be the followers of Cenarius, and be granted the privilege to enter into the paradise world known as the Emerald Dream, but were forced to sacrifice much of their youth and centuries to aid Yrsa in the dream. In their dedication to the dream world, the Druids learned much about the natural forces of the wild, many of nature's secrets, and were trained by many green dragons and keepers of the groves to use their magic in a variety of ways. Each time a Druid came back far more powerful and wiser than when they had entered the dream. Other than that, it is widely unknown what powers lay in the Emerald Dream, as it is surrounded in secrecy and mystery. Women, on the other hand, would become the warrior class in various warrior roles and be the main bulk of the Night Elf armies, holding most of the political power and heading numerous organizations that only allowed women entry. The females would continue to follow the moon goddess Elune and worship her, and would hold positions of leadership, enforce the law as wardens and jailers, and continue to hunt down any threat they deemed necessary. The women also would patrol the borders and protect both the Druids as they slept and the forest realm. The many divine beings would also come to assist them in this task in the thousands of years to come. The Night Elves found they had gained immortal lives, living their lives without so much as aging a day, unhindered by sickness, age, or disease, but still able to die from combat or other outside circumstances. This event would also play a significant role in the history of Warcraft, as the demons would be forced to find some other way into the world to gain access to the well itself. Nordrassil would protect the well from anything and everything, and even if the demons somehow managed to find access into the world, they would not be able to get to the well until they destroyed Nordrassil itself, which would be no easy feat, and thus delayed the Legion's return for 10,000 years. And that's it for today. This concludes the Blessings of the World Tree and the Emerald Dream. Thank you for watching today's episode. If you want to see more episodes and comparisons, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to message me. Also, don't forget about our Facebook page that is up and running. The link to that is in the About box. Until next time, I will see you on the next episode.